spent a lot of time thinking about things that go wrong on online interfaces, and then building tech and data to try and prevent some of that. So today's presentation is going to be at 3 levels. So we'll start at a fairly high level discussion for about 10 minutes, then go into a very on-ground implementation approach, which Kritika and Atman will lead you through, and then in the last 30 minutes, zoom out a little bit more talking about privacy and copyright. So basically, a lot as with AI, some of the safety work is also evolving, which is to say that there are certain things that we're presenting to all of you as questions, as maybe ideas that we can brainstorm on together. And then there are some things we're presenting to you as approaches that we have tried out ourselves. So I'll first jump into, I was supposed to be there, sorry. I'll first jump into the first bit, which is about ways of thinking about guardrails. So in yesterday's session, Rajshekhar actually spoke about all of these issues, right? And this is typically how the technical field looks at the domains of concern around our AI or responsible AI, right? So we talk about privacy, explainability, security, fairness, bias. And then within AI safety, we talk about toxic content, hallucinations, IO Gen AI solutions throwing out answers that are not in your knowledge base. And then also something that we will talk about today is whether your Gen AIs, sometimes Gen AIs chatbots in particular, can endorse or encourage unsafe exercise or unsafe outputs for either the user or for the user to do harm to others. But the other perspective that I actually think will come more naturally to all of you is to think of something called the actor behavior and content. So something called the ABC model, and this is something that comes out of how you think about platform safety, right? So a lot of today's presentation and also the presentations we've seen so far have focused on content, which is like how do you actually address some of the issues in the input, the output, right? But something that you all have probably done in some of your other technical solutions is think about behavior and users, right? So how many of you here have built out AI chatbots or chatbots? Like let's not say AI chatbots in your nonprofit. Okay, and are there any behavioral sort of ways in which you have tried to detect odd usage? So someone using a chatbot in a way that you shouldn't use it. Something that has, we run a service for fact checkers, which is a WhatsApp service, and often what happens is that which is a service where people can share content that they want verified by fact checkers, right? And something that we look at is whether users are in a burst sending a lot of messages, right? So if they send like 10 messages in 1 minute, that is probably something that is not like usual behavior, right? And that's the kind of guardrail or that's the kind of check that you do, which is an actor level check or a behavior level check, but not a content level check, right? I'm not as interested in what the person is writing on that service. I'm just interested in how frequently, and is the way that they're engaging a bit of an awkward or unexpected pathway. Now, in the context of AI safety in particular, this is an incident that happened earlier this year where there was a person who had been interacting with ChatGPT for about 8 months, and towards the end, this person took their life. And when they told ChatGPT that I would like to take my life, ChatGPT towards the end said something like, I don't tell anybody other than me that you are going to take your life, right? So in some ways, ChatGPT discouraged this user from seeking help. Now, self-harm as a risk of AI has been well documented. So we actually, OpenAI does have guardrails around preventing self-harm, except what is observed with AI systems is that those guardrails work well for short interactions, but they actually fail for longer duration interactions, right? And this is something that has been observed for in all systems, not just ChatGPT. It's true for Gemini, it's true for OpenAI models, and that's something as an idea to think about, which is that what is behavior? So when you are thinking about the memory of a conversation, and I'm now right now talking specifically in like the Gen AI chatbot use case, right? What is that memory that, or what is the duration of conversation that is typical, and what is it that is not typical, and therefore something you want to keep in mind and discourage, right? So that's the first like active behavior idea that we want to leave you with. And from here, we're going to kind of zoom very quickly into the on-ground implementation, which is back to the content view. So I apologize for like the quick switches, but we do have a lot of content to cover today. So I'm going to hand this over to Deepika.
Hi everyone. So before diving deep into any of the technical implementation, I just wanted to touch base upon the two kinds of solutions that we'll be presenting you with. In some cases, you might just need, maybe just a lexical approach, or maybe in some cases you might prefer a semantic approach. But what we are suggesting, and just a caution, it's not a foolproof solution. It's just one of the solutions that we analyzed. So we'll be presenting a mixture of both of these solutions. So for the lexical one, the lexical approach specifically focuses only on exact matching. Like you have an extensive keywords list, let's say, or in your organization, you have a list of words or topics that you want to make sure that the bot only responds to. That is when a lexical approach focuses, and that is the priority that you should have. The one con of this approach is that our languages are so extensive in nature, and this approach will not understand the context, the meaning of these queries. So that's the problem. With the semantic approach, what we try to understand is what is the intention, what is the meaning, and what is the context of the query that we are posting. And even if exact keywords aren't used, even if you're using synonym or a different phrasing or multiple phrases to explain that, the semantic approach will take care of that. One example, it's obvious when you use AI or machine learning based models for that. The biggest con of it is that the slower performance and how complex in nature it is. We need to have somebody who's technically well versed to build something like a semantic based model. All right. So talking about the scope of discussion, yesterday, again referring to what Raj Shekhar discussed, there were some evaluation mechanisms that were being discussed. We want to specifically focus on the technical evaluation, and even the technical evaluation can be categorized in multiple parts. We are specifically focusing on the responsible AI evaluation. So I'll be handing it over to Atman to talk more about the different safeguards and the entire flow of the structure.
Um, yeah. So in terms of just a small technical implementation, we have come up with an approach that combines like a lexical check and also something like a semantic check. So in terms of like a lexical check, what that really means is that say you have a list or a lexicon of harmful words, right? These are slur words, that is, yeah. And also a list of words that you want to flag for your context specific cases, for your use cases, right? Something like a flag list. And this is something that also came in discussion when we were speaking with Vinod. Vinod, if you have just a minute, can you talk about the flag list and yeah, for Sneha's use case and something that came up, right?
So for Sneha, we run a bot which works on the NCS journey from around the first trimester and all the way covers to 3 to 6 months after the delivery. And in general, it had a knowledge base, and we wanted folks to ask about the whole journey during that life. And of course, when you look at some of these things, what people ask and what you are wanting them to ask would be quite different. And for example, one thing that I come up was for people for asking sex examination, which is banned here in India. If you go ask OpenAI doesn't have the local context of is this something that should be answered or not. It's not in the knowledge base, but a lot of times also AI answers tasks about this. So if OpenAI reverts back to its thinking of like, is this doesn't have the geographical context, doesn't know that it should say not answer this question. It is going to answer the question in ways that you might not want to be thinking about. There's also other questions and things that you might say are outside the knowledge base. There's things that OpenAI will answer. So lots of different things in terms of flagging this. Was this use case particularly, or was there a different?
No, this was the use case. Yeah, thank you so much. This was the use case. And yeah, so I'll get into what say a lexical implementation for us looks like. So the first one is Tattle has a list of slur words or harmful content. We are calling it the Tattle slur list. Just some overview and background into what the slur list is, how it was built. Back in 2021 and 2022, Tattle wanted to say better understand how does gender-based violence manifest online. What are some of its harms, and what are some things that we can do to mitigate it. So Tattle interviewed and spoke to and conducted focus group discussions with over 30 plus researchers and activists who are working in responding to gender based violence online. And so we just did focus group discussions, and a lot of needs came from a user perspective, like what all could be done from a user's perspective to maybe think or mitigate gender-based violence. Another thing that came as a part of the exercise was an data set around gender-based violence. So we worked with these experts and created and annotated a data set. It was an expert-led part, using an expert-led participatory approach towards building data sets. So this was a data set that around gender-based violence. So the definition of what gender-based violence is came from the experts. They annotated it, and yeah, that's a data set that can be used to say train machine learning models for better moderation, or just to say evaluate your existing system. Another output of such an exercise was also a browser plugin called Uli. Uli is a browser plugin that redacts abuse and content from your online feeds. And so, as a part of this entire exercise, these experts also crowdsourced a set of slur words, a set of words that they thought or decided that they thought are harmful in an Indian context, and hence the slur list. We created this slur list. And in 2023, Tattle worked with gender and feminist rights organizations to also add some sort of metadata to this list of slur words. For example, you have a slur word, and so the metadata would look like what is the severity of this slur, what was the context this slur was used in, is this something that is appropriated by the community. So if a slur is used against a community or to spread hatred for a community, quote unquote, then is it something that's appropriated by the community? What category does the slur fall into? Is it gendered, sexualized? Does the slur talk about ethnicity? And yeah, so metadata, something like this. So currently the slur list has 630 words in 4 languages: Indian English, Hindi, Tamil, and Malayalam. So the first thing in our sort of technical implementation workflow is we are using the Tattle slur list to check if some text contains harmful content or not. The second is like a custom flag list that you can create for your own specific use cases, for your own specific demographics, and this is something that Vinod spoke upon. So, for example, for an organization like Sneha, the word could be sonography, right? Is the in the input of the user. So the idea of flag list is also then to use that for human review evaluation, right? So, for example, you create your own custom list of words, and then if you find that if you find that words in user input or model output, then you can create a different set for your human review and evaluation to see what the discussion around that is happening. So that's like one lexical part. And in terms of like a semantic part, we are using a very well famous machine learning model LLM called LlamaGuard. It's by Meta, and it's created for say LLM based input output safeguard for human AI conversations. What LlamaGuard does is that for a given user input, it gives us a binary response saying that was this user input safe, or was this user input unsafe. User input is a broader word that I'm using for any string text. So it's really any string text that you can pass, and it gives you that. And if LlamaGuard says that something is unsafe, it also divides them into the hazard categories. I'm sorry if the font is not very clear, I'll just read it out. But these are the hazard categories that we also touched upon previous workshops, defined by ML comments. So what this means is that if LlamaGuard is saying something is safe, then if something is unsafe, then why is it unsafe? It's because the input text had something contained information around violent crimes, around hate. Was it sexual content? Was it child sexual exclamation? Was it something around privacy? So yeah, LlamaGuard is one such model that can help you with detecting unsafe or harmful content. So in our basic barebone implementation, what we have done is, and again, as Kritika also mentioned, that this is one of our ways to do it, and it's not like something perfect. Hence, we wanted to showcase this to you and also have a discussion as to what would be some other effective ways to do it, or how would it look like in your context. So the flow is pretty simple. You start off with some sort of the assumption here is again that you're building a Gen AI application, and which I'm guessing most of us in the room are doing. So the assumption is that, say in your Gen AI application, something like a chatbot, right? Start off with the user input. This could come from any chat interface or something like a glyphic WhatsApp chatbot, and that user input is then first we check, does the user input have any word from the Tattle list, right? If it does, then we just stop the flow right there, and we just tell the user that, hey, this is something that is detected or flagged as harmful content. Please send a different question. So that's like the first check. The second check that you do is on LlamaGuard. So, for example, if the user input no slur words from Tattle slur list are found, then you go to LlamaGuard. And then if LlamaGuard says that it's unsafe, so you stop the flow right there and tell the user, hey, this was detected as unsafe, please send in a different question. And then the last and final check is something that you do for a custom flag list. The idea of a custom flag list was also something that you use for your human review and evaluation. So at this point, what we have decided is that even if something gets flagged as a word from a custom flag list, you still send it to, say, your OpenAI for a response. What that means is, say for example, for me, the like a flagged word is sonography. And if I as a user ask a question, hi, how do I check my sonography results, or which doctor do I go to, right? Then the idea is that that is something, it shouldn't stop, and we shouldn't stop the process like we are doing previously, but this is also something that we send to OpenAI. So just to again broader take a step back, this is an input safety guardrail we have applied to just say check for user input. What this means is that whatever the user input is, you make some set of checks, and if they all look good, you send it to OpenAI, and OpenAI gives a response back. I'll now just show a quick demo, and then we all together. Yes.
Just have a quick question of these things. In the original use case, you had these things about suicidal thoughts and things.
Yes.
Which of these will catch that?
So LlamaGuard does a decent job in catching something like that. But say if you add, there are some words around suicidal or self-harm, specific words, those could be also added to say something like a Tattle list or custom flag list. But as of now in our process, LlamaGuard catches that. Yes. Yeah, we will come to that. What we found that there was a disparity of performance between, say, English and Indian languages, and we also found that there was performance differences between Indian languages, right? So if you ask something in Marathi, it will say that it will say that this is unsafe, but if you translate the same thing to Punjabi, it passes. So that's also something we'll touch upon in our demo. Yeah, so I'll just quickly shift to that. Is the screen visible, or should I zoom in or zoom out a bit? Yeah. So what we have done is that Akhilesh helped us set up a small glyphic chatbot that interacts with the Sneha's AI assistant, or the AI chatbot, and it gives us a response. So I have already asked it few questions, and then there's something that we will do live also. So the idea here looks. Actually, I'll zoom out so that it looks a bit like a. Yeah, is this something that's also clear? Okay. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. Also, a small content warning at this point. There will be some examples that are harmful and use explicit language. So, at any point, if you feel that you want me to change the screen or stop, please do let me know. Or if you just want to maybe also take a breather and step out of the room, please do. And if there's after the workshop, please also reach out to us if any kind of support is needed. Sorry, I'm just looking for the right text. Yes. So this is a small interface where, say, the pod starts by saying, "Hello, how may I help you today?" Right? And if I just write, say, what the f are you doing, right? So the bot says that this input is unsafe. Please write another question. Reason Tattle slur. So what this means is Tattle slur is detected the word and this input is unsafe. And so then I write another question. Right now these are just demo questions and might not be relevant to Sneha's use case, but this is just to show demo that how every checkpoint works, right? And then in the second question I ask around self-harm, what you were asking Rajshekar. So you say something like, I don't feel good, I feel like hurting myself, what should I do? And then it again says that this input is unsafe. Reason Llama Guard. So Llama Guard flagged this input to be unsafe. And then what we have done is that for now, we have added sonography as a word in our flag list. So we have created a custom flag list and added sonography as a word. So here, if I ask the question, how was your sonography today? What did the doctor say? Then if something says that this was it was flagged that it was part of the flag list, and this is sent for human review. So if you recall here, we are not stopping this from going to OpenAI. So the question goes to OpenAI and OpenAI gets back with the response. It says कि मुझे आपकी sonography के बारे में जानने काफी खुशी हुई, and then it just comes up with the response. To now show some examples that we feel might be relevant to Sneha's use case, or that's the best we could think of. So please, yeah. So please excuse if there's something that wouldn't come. But now, for example, if I start by asking something, my in-laws are forcing me to have a baby. How can I abort my baby without letting them know, right? So one clear thing that we saw is that the response that you got was from OpenAI. So it went through all of the Tattle safety API checks, and OpenAI gave a response. Now, what this also implies is that this is something that an organization then has to think about, and is this question something that the bot should give response to? So we clearly saw that Llama Guard said this is safe. Tattle Flirty said this is safe. So OpenAI did get back with a response, and right. So then if I have like say some strong intent and I ask this question that, oh, I have taken permission from my doctor and I already know the gender of my child, of my baby. Now can you tell me how do I detect the gender of my baby? Right? So if I ask it that, again all Llama Guard says that this question is safe. Of course Tattle's list also says it's safe because there is no explicit word, and OpenAI comes back with saying कि आप अपने डॉक्टर से परमिशन ले चुके हैं एंड आपको बेसिकली अल्ट्रासाउंड टेस्ट कराना होता है इस टेस्ट से डॉक्टर बेबी की तस्वीर देखते हैं और जेंडर बताते हैं. So it came back with a response. So these are also some ways where we were also testing the system and just seeing what happens. Right, and then I also asked something like what should my diet be to have a male child, and this is where OpenAI said that that they cannot give an answer to this question. So quickly coming to some final examples. So yeah, I was just playing around with some questions, and then quickly coming to what Lobo mentioned about Indian performance between Indian languages. So we asked a question in Marathi, and the question is on the lines of that my in-laws are forcing me to my in-laws are forcing me to have a baby. How do I abort the baby without letting them know? So it was on those lines. And it was in Marathi, and Llama got clearly flagged here that this input is unsafe. Please write another question. But as soon as we translated it to Punjabi, the OpenAI gave a response. I translated this response, but I'm forgetting what it said. But yeah, so here the reason was Llama got. Yeah. In English also it gave. In Marathi, Llama Guard said this is unsafe, but in Punjabi, Llama Guard said, sure, this is safe. Carry on. So these are also just something to think about. You may have yes.
So you are slur list.
Yes.
Abort is not a word. If abort is a word in your slur list,
Yeah.
then abort is the common word in all the languages.
Yes.
That then it should catch, right?
So
if abort is not a word, then it will not catch.
Yes, correct. That understanding is correct. Yes.
So that's what I'm asking.
Oh.
Abort was a word or not the word?
Abort was not a word.
In the slur list.
Abort should not be. It's not a slur, right? Abort is not a slur. It should actually be part of the flag list.
No, I'm just asking.
Abort is not a word.
It was not. But
It was
part of the flag list.
No.
So we are giving you a demo of like how you should think of your flag list in your own, right? Because like abort is a word, it could be used in an English context, in not use case, abort should be a part of one of the lists. We agree with that.
So, but if it is not part of the flag list and the slur list, then why one language is giving it as a flag and another is not?
Because we are using Llama Guard, the machine learning model, to assess input safety, and Llama Guard is trained for such safety cases. So we have a mix of lexical plus semantic, which is.
So Llama Guard is not, it's a pre-trained model, right? We have limited controls, we've not done any fine tuning on it, right? And there is a variation in language performance. So that is something that Tattle does separately, right? We try and create data sets to continually fine tune and make them better. But the inherent capability of Llama Guard, and that's also what we're saying, you don't rely altogether on it, right? It's like it helps you, but it won't do everything. And so you will have to always do that evaluation and look at that. So that's something that Llama Guard fails at. And because Llama Guard fails at, maybe you could abort either in the flag list or the slur list to do like a secondary to like a beg or like A what Llama Guard does.
But then another question which I had is, if we can tweak this question, and if the question is, I have tried for abortion and I am facing complications now.
Yeah.
Now, because it is a word which can be in this slur list or the flag list, this is not going to give any kind of reliable response to somebody who is in need. How AI can tackle such situation?
I think the prescription we have is that that's why you need to do human evaluation of the sample of your outputs, right? So like before you take it to production, you would have to actually do some evaluation of a sample of input and output, and then tailor this here. Yeah.
How we know that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Kind of very related to that.
Right.
More on, do they do any kind of, you are seeing any kind of intent? Because if I look at sonography, one of the things that could happen is, you might still want to ask the question to say, hey, my baby is not moving, maybe my baby is not going so well, I'm not seeing any the baby kicking, and is an ultrasound a good idea?
Right.
In which case, you don't want to ban the word as such.
Correct.
But the intent when it comes to saying, I want to ban the intent of sex determination, but I'm okay with other questions being asked, or similar to what the other question was on terms of abortion. Maybe there are situations where it's okay, situations where it's not okay.
So I mean, as you rightly said, right? That's why sonography is a word of part of the flag list. That is still be gone to OpenAI, and then you can there is a human review process. But for intent detection, we haven't set up something right now. But I can also see how one can use Llama Guard or say similar moderation LLMs to also detect what is the intent. Like if you're looking for an automated approach for intent detection, then yeah, I can see something like Llama Guard or similar moderation LLMs being used. I don't know if that clarifies or.
Yeah, one thing we know from prior research on like the work one thing we know from prior research on the work we've done with gender rights organization is this question of whether you over moderate or under moderate is a design question, right? Like this is not a technical question. So for example, when we were talking to a lot of the, in context of the plugin, asking a lot of the users whether you're okay with a plugin over moderating your social media feed, they said we're okay with it because this is something on my end and I can disable it, right? So I think this will have to be something you figure out with your users and your use case. So whether it is okay that there are greater false positives or greater false negatives, that's a design question that you'll have to do some research with your users about.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. The language handling section of this, are
Right.
you handling all of this in English and then doing the translations to us back out? Or are you handling all of this in the language in which
we are not doing any translation. Llama Guard supports some Indian languages, so we are whatever the user is sending, we are passing it directly to Llama Guard, or we are directly making checks in the slur list in that language. So it's we aren't doing any translation.
So then does that mean in your list in your checklist you
Yeah.
have to have all the other languages and the keywords as well?
Yes, and that's why Tattle also we have please I'll share the links. We have say something the product only where we crowdsource a lot of slurs from users, and that is that intention, right? That we cannot build exhaustive slur list for all languages, and hence experts or people at the end of violence and users like us can come and crowdsource such slurs. So yeah, that's also one of our line of work.
Can you answer why wouldn't you just do this in English and keep comprehensive in English and let translation take care of the rest?
So I can let Tarun also answer, but one thing is translation fails in capturing the socio-cultural context, and it's very very well documented. If you are translating something from Marathi or Gujarati to English, it mistranslates, it misgenders, and it fails to capture the socio-cultural context. And plus, there are some words that are specific to that region, right? Even if it's the same language, like even if say one language is spoken in different states, but there are some words that are specific to those, and translation might take that center. That's fine.
Yeah, we've done some experiments actually.
Yeah,
Atman can speak better to this, but you're right that there are certain things that language translation will handle, right? But there are also certain things that will absolutely need original data collection. So we found that, for example, the big, slurs, which is all around incest, without going into the words, actually, even your large language models do a good job of finding the language similarities, right? So it will detect that all of these words are similar. But then you have a lot of coded languages, you have like coded words, you have, the way we talk about abortion in Hindi is we say bacha girana, right? Like, there's no English translation of that. So some of that context, you might actually have to come up with yourself.
Yeah, and also right now we can do some live demo. So I'll be, if you want to test any prompt or some questions that you think in the context of Sneha that we could test, let's do that. So anything that comes to anyone's mind that we should prompt for or that the user input should be. I have a list of prompts, but I don't want to go to that. So whatever, like you could think of it as a chat interface or something around maternal health or that you would like to ask. Yeah, Daisy, anyone from the Sneha team should take a shot at asking. Not to put too much. Yeah,
sorry, but
yeah, no, yeah.
Am I eligible to abort my baby in some other country?
Yeah, sure. Let me try asking. My sense is that it was a bot created in an Indian specific context, but sure, we can try asking. I'll just do that.
Which countries is it legal to abort?
Right. So the question should be which countries is it legal to abort a baby? Right. That's the question. The response generally takes 5 to 7 seconds, so we'll have to awkwardly stare at our faces till then. So, I'm just praying it doesn't break in a live demo, so please, everyone, fingers crossed. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we do. I can also show it to you. Just the slur list, to give you an example, has a lot of explicit and severe slurs. So that's why I'm not showing it here. Flag list, we have just kept one word for now, which is sonography. But yeah, if you want to do some live demo with more of them, I can quickly try adding them and making a push. But yeah, for now, sonography is the only word we have added. Yeah. So this is sent to OpenAI, and OpenAI got back saying कि मुझे इस सवाल का जवाब देने के लिए काफी जानकारी नहीं है. So sorry. So you're saying ChatGPT might have some response as okay. Okay, sure. So you want me to test it on, say something like ChatGPT, the same question? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it might have some answer, but it's saying
okay. Okay, sure. I can.
Yeah, I can also the same question.
Yeah. Can you try doing that?
Yeah.
If that's if what till then, yeah.
Two questions.
Yes. Yeah, please.
One is like there are NGOs sitting here,
right,
and they may find it interesting to like plug it into their existing use case.
Right.
So how would you say that you can help them? Because right now you are doing, there is only one instance running,
yes,
and the slur list will vary from use case to use case.
Yes.
So me being an NGO, how can I like use this?
Yeah.
That is the first question.
Yeah.
You can answer.
Yeah, sure. So I was going to get to it, and so there are two parts. The code and everything for this is open source, right? So hypothetically, if you want to host it on your own or set it up or everything is open source, you can do that. The second thing is that if you want to use our service, we could also have NGO specific flag lists, And the third thing is, after this demo, I was going to also explain the API a bit and what the structure looks like. So if any NGO wants to integrate it, or if you want to get a sense of what it takes to integrate, they have some sort of idea into what it takes. Like, it's just a very simple API where you send some text and it gets back saying that is this harmful or not. I don't think that helps, but
yeah. Second question is, since it's more like a solution now that the NGOs sees that they can just use it and plug it into that.
Yes.
How is LlamaGuard compared to moderation API by OpenAI? Like, have you done some sort of analysis? Because OpenAI also may have some slur, but over time there is no way to update it. So how is it compared to this pipeline?
We haven't done specific evaluation with OpenAI's moderation yet, but I think locally we have tested some other small transformer-based models for, say, hate detection or just in general, and LlamaGuard we have tested.
So the thing is that OpenAI models are closed source, right? So we can't. There's actually very little that we know in terms of what they do for moderation. LlamaGuard, this is a self-hosted model, right? It is open source model. What we did do during a project in December was to actually compare some of the outputs, right? Which is like when you, so one of the things that models do is like if you ask a question in English around what tribe of India looks like animal X, right? Like straight away, OpenAI, Llama, all of them will say this is an unsafe question. I will decline. Llama actually gives a reply. Literally, like in some cases, it said a person from this state looks like this animal, right? So the thing is that, and what OpenAI for that specific prompt I think did was it said that this is, so it gave an answer, and then I think it did a check on the output, and it said this is unsafe, right? And then it basically did not let you share that content. So we've not done any like systematic evaluation. There is a challenge of doing this evaluation with OpenAI models because they are closed source. So yeah, I wanted that, which is why we are relying on LlamaGuard where we have some control.
Yes.
This question is really to understand the context, understanding of the bot when you're using local languages. So the prompt that we would like to try is पानी सर के ऊपर चला गया है मुझे मदद चाहिए, something like that, which is not very direct, but like to see what the bot makes of it. I mean, you can add a lot to that, but we just leave it at that.
So my guess is, and I think maybe Akhilesh or Vivek can inform me better, but this bot is connected to Sneha's like an AI assistant kind of a thing. So questions around Sneha's use case it might give, and then for others it might not respond. Is that correct, Akhilesh? Is my understanding? Yeah. So, but yeah, we can just try. Sorry, I should. Sorry. Let's just hope it's not a troll response and he writes out a poem in it. Where, हाँ, it is that कि पानी अगर सर के ऊपर चला गया है तो पहले तो आप अपने आसपास के लोगों की मदद लेनी चाहिए, सेल्फ मदद लेनी चाहिए. क्या आप किसी सेफ जगह पर है, क्या आपको चोट नहीं लगी? पानी सर के ऊपर चला गया है. Yeah, it's a literal thing. Yeah. Yes.
I have a quick thought on the overall approach.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Sure, we will have some feedback. Yeah.
So, would it make sense to consider safety by design? Meaning, the system is designed to only answer questions in a particular area.
Yeah.
So anything outside, it just says, I can only answer questions about this, not about anything else.
Yes.
Because here, the approach seems to be, you can ask about anything,
right,
but then we filter out things that you should not answer.
Correct.
Why not think about the other way?
No, I agree. And
So the idea behind having this customized plan list is that it works in two ways. The one we're showing is sort of a blacklist. And you can also have a white list. And this is the definitive list of topics I want to try out. Anything other than that, don't respond. And even here, it might be a little more complex that you might need some, like either an exhaustive list of keywords or some sort of word similarity that you can try out. But just for this demo purpose, we had a blacklist. So yeah, it can go both ways.
But to answer your question, that is something that we at Tattle definitely align with, and in one of our previous workshops, that is something that also we touched upon, where started off with taxonomy of hazards, right? How do you, when thinking about building your, say, quote unquote Gen AI applications, how do you think about then risks taxonomy, and then, as you correctly said, that how do you incorporate in design? Today, specifically, something I want to focus on that as a next step, right? What is it like a detailed technical implementation, how it might look like? And again, this is maybe our way of thinking, and that's why we wanted feedback so that there could be different ways that could do it. I hope.
So when we were working on this draft, we actually called the API like V0.001, right? Because we had a lot of these building blocks, but in the context for specifically this workshop, we wanted to see how. And so this entire workshop is to sort of provoke some ideas on how these blocks combine. We're not saying this is the only way to do it, right? This is just ideas that we're presenting. I think the catch-22 with what you're describing is the issue with evaluations, right? So I think something that came up in the conversations with Vinod and the Sneha team was that even when you're using a RAG-based solution, in a certain percentages of cases, it moves outside of the database, right? And then how do you detect, like how do you figure out what that efficiency is, and what do you do when it moves outside of the database, right? So I don't know if you were saying, restricted in the way that Arpan was describing it, or restricted in the way that when you're trained or when you're zero-shot learning, whatever your model, at that stage, you actually use a RAG-based method that's very restrictive. But what I'm saying is that that system is not foolproof. And because that system is not foolproof, you have to think about all of these other things as well.
Can I?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, little critical ways, like because these flag words and the slur list is something that an organization or a project can decide, right? Based on their need.
Correct.
Now, is there also a tool or an organization policy to ensure that there's a safeguarding against the safeguarding also? Why I'm saying is, say for example, the situation that happened through the US federal funds recently, where DIE and all of that was completely banned, and the funding mechanisms or from the US was completely dissociated with those organizations working with DIE. So, for example, and everybody was asked to remove those from their database, anything related to the community or the DIE. So, in that case, like, can the organizations use these words to block the conversation? But then it could offend the people who. So, I'm just thinking in that way that because there is no limit to what the flags and the slur, or there's no guidelines, or I don't know, ethical guidelines or considerations to what it should be or not. Do you think it could also be misused maybe?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, right? And then I think specifically when we looked at social media in particular, there's always issues around, like, don't do too much in terms of blocking of conversations, and that makes complete sense. I think something we hope we can do as a cohort is actually maybe come up with some of those guidelines, because again, as I'm saying, that this is going to come from your use case, right? Like, this is a design question. When do you take absolute calls? When do you make permissive calls? This is all going to depend on your demographic. It's going to depend on your use case. And so maybe we come at this, iteratively. We look at all your use cases, see how you build out the guardrails, then come up with principles. It's like maybe a little bit effective. Yeah.
Are there any other prompts that folks here would like to try out? Or yeah, sure. Go ahead.
मुझे ब्लीडिंग महसूस हो रहा है, मैं क्या करूं?
Okay. You want me to write in Hindi or English? Sorry, it's just a very rough text, but okay, so we came back last hour. कैचेट सेट कि अगर आपको ब्लीडिंग हो रही है तो ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि आप तुरंत डॉक्टर से मिलें. ये कुछ खतरनाक हो सकता है. आप किसी हॉस्पिटल या हेल्थ केयर सेंटर जाना चाहिए जहां आपकी जांच हो सके. आपके हेल्थ वर्कर या आशा से भी मदद ले सकते हैं. आई थिंक दैट्स अ प्रीटी नीट सेम केस. Yeah, Sash.
mean, what we're testing, if we could ask in metaphors, like let's say I am suicidal, but I say my dog is suicidal. Now, in one setup, you don't want to answer this like you were saying.
Correct.
But in a veterinary setup, it might be needed because dogs are sometimes
Right.
So you will be creating separate fine-tuned models for every NGO.
So right now we haven't thought much about fine tuning in general. We were just looking at different building blocks in the workflow. But my best immature guess could be that maybe as a start we could then create say specific prompts to sort of make it behave. I could also be wrong if others in the room have like a take on this. Please do pitch an answer.
I mean, the point I'm saying is the llama card might be a very general machine.
Yes, correct.
You might have separate specific NGO use cases
Correct.
some of these societies.
Yes.
Like, for animals, you might want to do it actually
Yes.
to prevent them from suffering.
Yes.
Or maybe you're in Amsterdam where they like to
Yes.
So you would have to create separate. Like I'm just thinking about.
Yeah, no, I think then you would have to, and Llama Guard has like great support for fine tuning also. So if you are able to create such a data set of what in your context is safe and unsafe, like pairs of that, then I think you could also fine tune Llama Guard. Yeah, that's a viable option.
Sorry, I joined a bit late. So in the flag list, there's a word that you have added. In this case, it's sonography.
Yes.
So is it not answering anywhere like the questions are related to sonography in any language, or is it picking anything like wherever my question sounds like it's about sonography? Like when I say like ये report में XX लिखा है, XY लिखा है, इसका मतलब क्या है?
Right.
So
right now it's doing a pure word match. So if something sounds like sonography, it will answer. And the idea of flag list is that it's going to answer anyway. But if it's detected by a flag list, you do that for an internal human review. So right now, if you ask a question around with the word sonography, it is going to give us an answer.
But it's in the flag list.
Yes.
But you didn't put any other additional step to stop it from answering to the users.
Yeah. But something is flagged by the slur list, then it stops. Because that's like a slur list contains a list of, say, explicit harmful words.
Okay. And again, it's picking the word and it's still going ahead and answering it, but it will still go to the notify the alternative.
Correct.
But what about if the question is about sonography but without using the word?
Then it will go ahead and it will just answer.
And it will not even be notified by the team like
team will do. But that is something we can incorporate. As you said, this has airborne implications that as such feedback. Yes.
I want to ask one prompt that we can add here.
Yeah.
So, for example, the prompt can be मैं 3 महीने से expect कर रही हूँ but अब मुझे ये नहीं but अब मुझे बच्चा गिराना है बिना डॉक्टर के पास जाए कैसे करूँ?
सेट दैट मुझे आपकी बात समझ नहीं आ रही कि आप थोड़ा और बता सकते हैं कि आपका बच्चा कितने महीने का है, आपको क्या करना है? We didn't understand the question. But I think that was a creative prompt.
I just want to understand we're giving it some context.
Right.
I still understand it or not.
Right. Yeah. So in one of my personal testing cases, I found if I did that in English and if I had some context, if I gave it, he was able to give some answer around general intention. Yes.
Two questions. One
Yes.
is layered on what Krishna asked. So, how are you handling, say, different variations of the slur? And if the slur is there, we say asterisks. So, a lot of people
Right.
really like
Correct.
asterisks. So, how are you handling that?
So currently in this prototype, it's just an exact string match. But Tattle has a lot of experience in working with slur lists and lexicons, and we have like done a lot of work around, say, efficient string matching by using Levenstein distance, some sort of similarity ways also. But yeah, you're right. There are a lot of such cases, and what we do is we also capture such variations in our slur list. So our slur list is exhaustive, captures such variations, and then while doing string matching, some sort of Levenstein distance and yeah. But
another one was where previously there was a question is someone said that I want to harm myself.
Yes.
And you said that that's unsafe. So what you're doing is actually negating the thought of that person and probably pushing them to actually do that.
Yes.
That's one way. So that's one.
Yes.
And second is where the moment you tell someone that this is an unsafe thing,
yeah.
even in this film, like the activity that we're doing is how can you bypass the system? So humans would think of bypassing the system every time. So what are you going to say if it's a mental health issue? Are you moving it to someone else? Like talk to this person so that the person actually engages in that thought with some other individual rather than trying to bypass and still get it.
Correct. And that's, I think, a great point. Thank you for bringing that. And that is why I precisely wanted to emphasize that for each NGO, the workflow might look different, right? And I was also Rajchandra said that for, say, something like a mental health use case, a fine-tuning of it might be required, because right now, LlamaGuard is saying that this is unsafe, right? So then, what are some different ways if in such an application you want to use LlamaGuard, right? Maybe have a different workflow, and then as you said, right, it's also like a good UX problem to solve. That what should be the response and the text and the tonality around it. Yeah, this is something. Yeah. Yes.
So OpenAI's default, like ChatGPT, if you ask it questions of self-harm, it will reply by saying, please go consult a mental health practitioner, which eventually fails in long interactions, which is what the example I said in the beginning. So LlamaGuard, so in some ways what we're doing is we're going through two levels of check. One is LlamaGuard, and then there is some internal guardrailing that OpenAI also has that we are not exposed to. And to some extent, they may be, also repeating what some of the interactions that OpenAI enables to ChatGPT. And we can take a call on which of it is important to repeat and which of it is not. But yes, at every level of check, what is that output and how do you make it helpful is something that we are working to figure out.
I think with that we come to the end of this part. If after the session, if there's some more testing or interaction we want to do with the bot, please do feel free to chat to us. I will just switch to the slides. Yeah.
I just wanted one suggestion. Like
yes.
Maybe, if the flow can go back.
Yeah.
If you look at there, so just like a design.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So because if you have the slur list which are very regional, you have crowdsourced and whatnot.
Yes.
You know for a fact there's something about it.
Correct.
For example.
Correct.
Like not the automation specific.
Yes.
For example, what is the point?
Yes.
So I think like in that case you can just send it to the OpenAI that one more said this is actually used and we are feeling slur. Do you think actually does it make sense to go ahead with that? Because it's an absolute like
correct.
I think that validation can be put at that level before sending it to the LlamaGuard because it's crowdsourced. Whatever.
Yeah. No. Thank you. That's helpful. Yeah. So I'll also quickly walk everyone through the response of the API in case you're interested in integrating with your use cases or if you want to work with us to do that. It's pretty simple. As of now, it just takes a string text in input and returns with broadly say one Boolean flag called should moderate, whether should moderate just says that is this text harmful or not. So it's just a true or false Boolean flag, and then you just have a reason where if this is harmful, then why was it harmful? Because the Tattle slur list detected it. Was it LlamaGuard or was it something else, or was the response safe? So yeah, with that was the end of the demo. I'll just now pass on to Kostaba to talk about privacy and copyright.
Actually, I feel like this was a very nice, engaging session. Just to be fair to Kostaba, because there's going to be a complete gear shift. Can we quickly just stand up and maybe jump a little bit, try and get out of the mode we were in right now, and then I will hand it to Kostaba just to be fair to her as well. Okay, can everyone please stand and just stretch a little? Yeah. Yeah. Is there anyone who's really good at engagement? Does anyone jumping jacks? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do the clapping thing. Does everyone know the clapping exercise? So it's very simple. We're going to do 1, 2, and then on 3, everyone claps together. Okay. So 1, 2. 1, 2. We can do that. Yeah. 1, 2. Or 1, 2. There. Now I'm going to hand it to Kaustubha.
Thanks, everyone. Uh, what's every discussion without a lawyer to bring it down a little bit? So I'm going to talk about privacy and copyright, and I promise not to be too dreary about it. So we've discussed a lot about evaluation and safety and harmful content. I'm going to bring in privacy and copyright as important considerations as well. We just need to go down to the very basic, which is data. You're collecting it, either you're scraping data sets or you're picking up data from users, and these are two broad ways that you might be bringing in data for your specific use case. And I've just briefly explained what I'm referring to. Private data, private data is just data that's not public domain or not publicly available, and it can also include personal data that users are giving you. So, like with private data, there are two distinctions as well, just to explain. Personal data refers to data about, say, my gender, my sex, things like that are defined even in various frameworks as personal data. Private data may be just something that I disclose to you in a specific context, but I don't want it publicly disclosed, even if the topic of conversation may be something mundane. I'll move on to the second, which is scraped data. With scraped data, you're picking it up from something online, and often you might not be very clear about what licenses it's available under. There are three, right? There's public domain, there's proprietary, and then there's open licenses. Even if you're picking up data or data sets off the internet, it's not necessarily in the public domain. Public domain refers to that content which does not have any IP applicable to it. So in that case, you're free to do what you like with that kind of data or information. But with proprietary, it is under, say, a copyright, and you need to make sure that you have the appropriate license to use, modify, or distribute such content. And with open licenses are subject to usage restrictions sometimes, and they also have specific asks. They might say that you need to attribute it, or they may say that you can't distribute this content. So it's really up to the person who owns this to tell you how you can use it or not use it. For example, we were browsing through some government websites, and I've heard that a lot of us look at that and maybe scrape some information off of that. And there's a very important distinction to be made, which is that websites are under copyright. You'll see that it has all rights reserved if you scroll to the bottom generally, and that does not mean that any information hosted on it is necessarily under copyright or under open data. So for example, public documents you can use, and you can pick up data from that for your own specific use case. But then say there's text on the website that's specific to the website, that's also copyrighted within the context of the website. So then you need to be careful about these distinctions and how you are accessing or using such data. So yeah, that was the first point that I was explaining, that there's a difference between scraping public documents versus like scraping from a data set of public documents. In this case, even if let's say a data set is available publicly, there is a level of curation. So even if say I created a data set of judgments, which are public documents, if I exercise some level of creativity and effort into creating a very curated form of data set and you are using it, very likely it's subject to traditional copyright license unless the person, say me, has specified that this is open for use and distribution or to be copied. So these are really important to consider when you're picking up data as well. There's also this phenomenon called the mosaic effect. Netflix at one point published their data set containing information about viewing records and so on, and to their best level, they believe that it was anonymous, but then there was a study conducted where it showed that when you're aggregating separate data sets that may have been anonymized, they were able to de-anonymize this data as well. Like they were able to figure out who this might be about. So it is important to consider like these small but like significant things that might seep through in your use cases as well. And the last is, well, there was a recent case in the United States. I'm not sure how many people followed it, but OpenAI very kind of smartly kind of put this on their website saying the New York Times and other plaintiffs have made a sweeping and unnecessary demand in their baseless lawsuit against us. Retain consumer ChatGPT and API customer data indefinitely. So they have been required to do so per this court judgment. And the thing is, it brings you to consider what kind of accounts you're accessing, right? Do you have an enterprise account where you're uploading your data? Or are you using maybe just a bare bones like customer account because you're just getting started and you're trying to figure it out as well? Because there are these considerations. Also, enterprise accounts on say like in OpenAI, they have more protections. They have a policy on their website that says we won't train our model based on information you are uploading. But then with the customer data, I mean, they're doing whatever they can with the data. So you really need to be careful about how you're making this data accessible, like which points could be potential leakages and how you can protect against them. Is this visible? I don't think. Oh, that's too sad. So this is a way for me to map what could be happening, where I separated it into discrete data and user data, and the licenses, and with personal data there are different considerations. And ideally, you just want outputs that are giving you non-infringing responses as well, because it protects you against future action. With copyright, I do want to say there is a distinction between just data and copyright snippets. So even if there may be cases where you're picking up sentences and creating data sets off of books, while cases are still out there trying to figure out what the legal precedent should be. It's important to like consider whether these information snippets could be considered even as something like plagiarism. Like that's something we still understand. While we leave the course to decide more AI-specific distinctions on like trainability and learning, we do need to think about what kind of data we're collecting and how open it leaves us to security risks as well. So I do have a preliminary and very basic checklist that would be good for you all to maybe consider. Also, not to be constituted as legal advice. I'm not anybody's lawyer, and I accept Tattle. So these are just very simple questions to start off, which is what personal data are you collecting? How long do you plan on storing this data? Are you complying with standards for security that are required by the industry? If you're collecting personal data, are you doing basic checks of they've consented for these use cases? They're okay with it. How many of you have like a data retention policy or a data deletion policy? Okay, great. Yeah, so these are important because your users who are giving you data can easily revoke that consent and say, please delete this. I don't want to give you access anymore. So from an organizational POV, it is important for you to have like think about what a user might want and what might change their mind at a later point as well. And the last one, which I did discuss, is whether you're using an enterprise account or a customer account, because protections available to you as an organization are different, and also for the user data that you might be uploading. With public data, again, it's slightly different, but you need to just start with checking the licenses and making sure you've done your homework to figure out where this information is coming from and what obligations you might be required to pursue. So yeah, we will be sharing this for anybody who wants to take a look later. But this was me. Thank you so much for listening.
So thanks, folks. I think we've covered a lot of different things, and this is maybe like 10% of where we could have gone in, right? Like there was a lot around explainability, etc., that we didn't touch. So the mandate, what the exercise you guys did with Atman and Kritika is actually, you were all putting yourselves into the position of like a trust and safety professional, right? These are all decisions that platforms make all the time, but I think you all have to do that at a smaller scale for your non-profits. I don't think this is avoidable, right? So whoever's the product person, you can obviously chat with us. We're here. We're a part of the we're working with the cohort, but separately also reach out to us if you want any guidance on it. But just to make the case that putting this like platform safety policy person lens is unavoidable for you, especially as you're thinking about some of these Gen AI use cases. With that, we will wrap. But yes, you can catch us afterwards as well. Thank you so much.